Welcome, STEM Core community, to our STEM resume writing session on Canva. Thank you guys all for diving in and beginning your STEM resume this semester. It is super important for us to gather all of the projects, all of the experiences that we have had up until this point, and elaborate that on our resume. So, on the next page, you will actually see a link and QR code to be able to download a template. And we will be going page by page at your own pace. So, you can feel free to play and pause at your own time as you build out your resume. So, before we jump right into our STEM resume, I would love for you guys to have a template so that we can have our layout nice and structured. So, if you can do me the favor and scan this QR code or click the underlined text, and it will take you to a Google Doc. On the left hand corner, you will click File. There'll be a drop down option for you to make a copy, and you'll want to rename it with your first and last name and hit save. And we can get started on filling in your awesome STEM resume. If you haven't already done so, I strongly recommend following us on Instagram. The QR code on the leftmost side will actually direct you to our growth sector Instagram page. And I suggest following us because we often will put reminders on our Instagram story. So it should help you know what's up and coming for that week. We generally will post on Monday, and through the week, we'll have a countdown leading up to that Friday session. If you cannot make it to that Friday session, we also upload those videos onto our YouTube page. So I do want to offer the QR code on the rightmost side that will take you to our actual videos that are recorded from the past. And if you need help finding them in the future, you have this QR code. All right, so let's jump in. We are going to be going through a breakdown of the sections of a resume. So hold on to your chair, open up a tab with the template, and follow along as you put in your information and start to build your STEM resume. All right, so first things first is our header. So this will sit at the very top of our page. So what should you include? First thing, your first and your last name. The next line beneath that should then have your city and your state. You can also put in your zip code if you want to really pin where you are. But personally, I suggest not including your full address. You want to make sure that we add an appropriate email. So if you have not yet made a professional email with something along the lines of your first and last name and a combination of some numbers, I strongly suggest doing so and adding that professional email to your resume. Make sure that you also add your phone number. And it's 2024. Please, let's have a professional voicemail set up. Make sure that it is set up. We don't want to miss a call from an employer and they don't have the opportunity to leave a voicemail. So please make sure we have a professional voicemail that's set up and ready to access. Next up is our objective statement. So, what should you include here? Your purpose. So, we want to communicate the type of position that we're interested in to help the employer see that we're moving into a new area or new industry, or just overall what it is that we're passionate about learning and growing from in this job. So, some examples: an engineering major seeking a part time engineering technician internship. All right, pull up your seat for this section because we have a couple little subsections to dive into amongst the education section. All right, so first up, we are going to list the name of your degree that you are currently in progress of. Next up is going to be the name of the institution. aka your college, the expected graduation or transfer date, and then next line down, we're going to add the city and state of your college. All right. Thereafter, we have relevant coursework. So, this section is super important and is very specific to a STEM resume in that we are letting employers know, hey, these are the classes that we've taken. These are the classes that I am currently taking. And these are the classes that I am forecasting to take next semester. So, this is really helpful for the employer so that they can establish what projects you would be a good fit for. So, if you have an understanding of intro to engineering, cool, let's list that. So, please don't put the number of the class, but let's list the title of the class because across different campuses, classes are listed with different numbers. So, we want to be as clear as we can for the employer so they don't know what that code number means. All right, so next up will be the math level. So for the math level, you'll add the level that you are currently in and also will forecast one semester out. So if we're currently in the spring semester, what math class do you have on your educational plan for the spring semester? And same thing here, it gives the employer a better idea of what your understanding is in the field based on your coursework. All right. Next up are our technical skills. So, this is super important to include any software, coding languages, or any hardware experience. So, if you have Python under your belt, C++, plus plus, if you've worked on an Arduino board, if you've been in the Fab Lab and you have used Tinkercad, please let's list all of the skills that you have in this area and then next up is the soft skills. So please only add the soft skills that you can definitely speak confidently to about your work ethic. So if I'm a great communicator, I definitely will list that as the first one. But if I'm a little bit timid and I'm not confident in cross collaboration and communication, let's not oversell ourselves. So only add the ones that you can confidently speak to. And then next will be our languages. So if you're bilingual, make sure to list the level and extent of your language skills. So to all my native second language speakers, please add that in there because realistically, you not only have the understanding of the language, but there is a big portion of that that's cultural competency. So if you're a native Spanish speaker, I would say list native bilingual Spanish experienced in reading, writing, translating. So definitely give yourself that credit. All right, so I want you guys to definitely take your time with this work experience section because we will be diving into a few sections that will organize the types and kinds of experiences we want our employer to know about. So, in this scenario, we're focusing in on our work experience. So, what is considered any full or part time job, any self employment. This also includes if you worked at a family business or if you unofficially helped with a family's business. Please give yourself that credit and please let the employer know that, hey, I have experience in these areas. I've gotten my hands on these type of projects. All right, so that also includes volunteer work, any practicum, field, or cooperative education. So just make sure that we're emphasizing the relevant experience towards the internship we're applying to and minimize any irrelevant experience. So, the information that we're going to include here is the company name, the job title, and then the city and the state and the dates of employment. Thereafter, we're going to list our duties. So, it's very important that we start off each bullet point with a verb in past tense. So, through doing so, we're going to be emphasizing our accomplishments. So if you had some hours that you spent, let's highlight an actual number so they can see what it is that we contributed. If you supervised anyone, let's let them know how many people we were in charge of a team, we were leading a team. Those are really powerful skill sets to have when we are working as a team as engineers. And if you improve sales at a certain job, it's also very important. Let's use tangible numbers. Let's include percentages. It gives a better idea for folks that don't know us and may not know that scope of work. So let's make it make sense for them. So before we jump into it, I know it can be a little bit intimidating to find the right verbs. So I have this page here for best practices for highlighting our job experiences. So, first and foremost, we want to choose strong action verbs. So opt for words that convey action, achievement, and results. So, for example, instead of saying responsible for, used managed, led, or oversaw. Now, this next one that I'm about to give you guys is definitely a gem, not only for your resume, but to structure your answers during an interview. So, if you have not already heard about the STAR structure, I am so happy to teach you about it today. STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. So, this method will help you frame your experiences. So, through the situation, you want to briefly describe the context or challenge you faced. Through the task, you want to explain your specific role and responsibilities within that context. Next, you want to speak about the action. What did you actually do? What steps did you take to perform what needed to happen to address that situation or task at hand? And then lastly, let's let them know what our wins were. What was the result? So quantify the positive outcomes as best as possible. I know I briefly touched base on that, giving percentages, giving numbers, so that folks can get a well rounded idea of what it was that you achieved. And then also make sure that those verbs are in past tense. So the first verb should always be in past tense. Alrighty. The next experience section will be our relevant academic experience. So, what can we list under here? Any organizations that you're a part of on campus, nationally, any conferences that are STEM related or related towards the position that you're applying to, and any educational events. So, if there was something that a club, for example, hosted and it had a developmental series on a special code language, let's highlight that. So, we'll want to list the name of the role that you took. For example, if you're an attendee at the conference, if you were a participant, or if you're a member, we'd want to list that. And then we'll add in some relevant details about one or two sentences about what took place here. Um, and lastly, we want to order these from newest to oldest, so we will be including the dates. Next up is our leadership and awards section. So in this area, we are going to add in any leadership roles that we hold at any club. It's okay if you are not there yet. If you are still a part of a club and you're a member, we still want to highlight that as a leadership experience. So, very important that we spell out the organization's name. So, for example, if we are on SWE, the Society of Women Engineers, we want to write that out completely. Next, if we have any awards that we received, we also want to list that there with the date. All right, so some resume do's. When you are downloading your resume to send off to an employer, do be sure that it is in PDF format. Unless otherwise stated, you want to download it in PDF because it pretty much freezes the page and it won't shift around any of your information. It'll keep it nice and clean as the way that you had polished it. All right, another big thing, make sure that you are using action verbs. So whenever you have those bullet points, you want to use past tense throughout your full resume. Be sure that this is consistent. And mix up your verbs. Do not use the same verbs over and over again. We want to mix it up in there, so vary that choice. You'll also want to tailor your skills and experiences to the job that you're applying for. So make sure that you are looking at the job description and pull those keywords, highlight that onto your resume so that your resume doesn't get looked over. Another big one here, you want to make sure that you are spell checking and proofreading your resume because oftentimes, if you have a messy resume, that speaks to the nature of your work. So, you want to make sure that this resume reflects you in a positive manner. Also, make sure that email address is appropriate. Some resume don'ts. Please do not use pronouns such as I, me, my whenever you are explaining through bullet points. Keep it focused on that first action verb in past tense. Do not use contractions such as can't. Be sure to spell the full word out, cannot. Do not include references. The references will be requested and should be provided on a separate sheet. Again, only when requested. Do not clutter your resume with non essential information. Do not use flowery information or generalized statements. Remember, we want to quantify when possible. Do not make any misrepresentations. You don't want to be asked about it down the line during your interview, and then you don't know how to answer or get caught in a lie. Let's avoid that. Let's not use abbreviations or acronyms. Be sure to spell it out. And do not include any personal information that can be placed in the discriminatory category. Tips and tricks. So be sure to use the format that we shared. You want to make sure that it is as simple as possible. Let's avoid any of the flowery templates with too many colors that'll distract the recruiter. Make sure that you proofread. Grammar, punctuation, and spelling is all really important. And like I said, it's a reflection of yourself through this resume. So be sure to proofread. Use uniform font type, style, and margin setting so that everything is conformed. Some of the fonts that are suggested are Calibri, Arial, and Garamond, so be sure to select one of those three, preferably. The size suggestion is no smaller than 10 point and no bigger than 12 point. The margin suggested is 1 inch all around. Point 0.5 on the top and bottom is also acceptable if you need a little bit more room. We can stretch it at the point 0.5 marks at the top and bottom. Use bold, italics, and underlining sparingly. Again, we don't want to distract the recruiter. We want to make sure that they are focused in the areas that we want them to see and that things don't look too chaotic with all of the bold and italics. So, use sparingly. And as a reminder, be sure to update your resume constantly. Suggested about every semester, I would say you want to revisit your resume, add on those current classes that you're taking, forecast the ones that you are set to take the next semester, and just constantly add on any personal projects that you're diving in during class time, any independent time. Make sure that you don't forget and that you are on top of this. Again, at least once a semester is preferable.